Members, we come to the Waitangi National Trust Board Amendment Bill. The question is that Part 1 stand part. Whew. I call Rino Tirakatani.
Mr. Chair, and it's a pleasure to take a first up call on this very significant piece of legislation, sir. I'm very proud to be a member of the Māori Affairs Committee.
A point of order, sorry. The Honourable, sorry.
Yeah, I do apologise to the member on his feet. I'm sorry, I was distracted. By agreement with the whips, I seek leave for debate on the Waitangi National Trust Amendment Bill to be taken as one debate, with the voting on the parts to be taken separately.
Leave is put for that purpose. Is there any objection? There appears to be none. Sorry, members. The question is that parts 1 and 2 and schedules and clauses, the schedule and clauses 1 to 3 stand part.
Thank you.
I call Rino Tirakatani.
It's okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And picking up from where I left off, sir, I'm very proud to be a member of the Māori Affairs Committee, and we gave very close consideration to this very important bill, which amends the Waitangi National Trust Board, and everyone knows that the Trust Board administers the Waitangi Treaty grounds and associated lands, and it's administered under a deed which is part of the enacting legislation. Now, sir, that original legislation dates right the way back to 1932. So, if my maths is right, that's 84, coming up to 85 years since the enactment of this legislation. So that's a long period of time in which this important trust has been in operation. And so we know that the Minister, through the Ministry of Culture and Heritage, conducted a review between 2006 and 2008, which wanted to update and modernise, I guess, the composition of the trust. Now, so that's effectively what this piece of the legislation does, sir. It does update a few of the provisions. Although, sir, to my mind, we are supporting this bill. But to my mind, I do feel that the mana of the Treaty of Waitangi, and the mana of the National Trust is somewhat diminished by the amendments that are included in this bill, sir, because let's bear in mind that there is very little in the way of historical bricks and mortar that we as a nation own collectively of such significance. And the Waitangi Treaty grounds are to Tai Tokerau, to us Māori, very sacred grounds. And so the amendments which are included in this bill, sir, change the ex officio membership of the Prime Minister, I believe the Minister of Conservation, and the Minister of Māori Affairs, who were, by virtue of their position, ex officio members of the board. And now, through this piece of legislation, sir, those ministers are now going to be part of a Crown representatives group. So they won't be formally part of the trust board, but they will maintain relationships with the trust board and maintain a positive relationship with the Crown. Now, as I mentioned, sir, 84 years this trust has been in operation. There has been no difficulties with the ex officio appointments of the ministers onto the board in all of those years. And so I guess, yes, there is a reasoning that the the board needs to modernise, but what does that mean? Where does that leave ex officio positions of ministers? And I'm sure, I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I'm sure there are ex officio appointments for ministerial positions in other bodies, right in our statute books. So I guess constitutionally, and that's Paul Foster Bell on the other side there. I know he's very much an expert on these matters, but where does this place ex officio ministers now that this piece of legislation will be removing them into a Crown appointers group, because it was deemed that there was a conflict between the constitutional roles that the ministers have and their trustee roles as being on the boards. But as I said, it's never been a problem for 84 years, Mr. Chair. So I don't see... Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I don't really see how that really is a big issue. But as I was saying, sir, I do feel that the mana of the trust is somewhat diminished by these changes, because we are now taking away the Prime Minister, the Governor-General, and the ministers and 2 government ministers being members on the board, to now having backbench MPs appointed by the government and the opposition. Now that is quite a step down, I guess, from the esteemed positions of the Governor-General, the Prime Minister and ministers. So, whilst we are modernising the trust, sir, we certainly hope that, and we know that the work of the trust is very important, and we would want to ensure that there are very close relationships maintained. Because I also notice, sir, that the Governor-General now has a role of being a patron, an honorary patron to the Trust Board, which is new, but that is only if the Governor-General takes up that position. So it's at his or her pleasure. And sir, so again, I feel that is diminishing the mana somewhat by having those esteemed office holders no longer part of the Trust Board. But be that as it may, sir, that is what the new composition of the board will look like. Now, sir, briefly, and I know other speakers will go into this, sir, but a major point of amendment that the committee considered was around the appointment by the 4 Māori whānau having the right to appoint their own representative to the Trust Board. Now, we know that the 3 Pākehā whānau of the Trust have always had that right, but the 4 Māori whānau, Tai Tokerau, chiefly Rangatira whānau, had to appoint currently only 1 board appointee. So I'm pleased that the Minister and through the committee there has been an agreement that that amendment will now come through, be put into the legislation, and it's also, I would like to acknowledge the Minister for her willingness to undertake a review of the operations of the Trust, which was another aspect which was came out of the committee. So, sir, this is a very, very important body, the Waitangi Trust Board. It has a long history. It has treasured taonga that it administers on behalf of the whole country, and we do support these changes. We do lament the somewhat diminishing of the mana through the positions that will no longer be on the trust. However, sir, these are changes that are being made to modernise the trust activities, and I know that other members in this House have a lot more knowledge and history in connection to this trust board, and I'm sure that they will be able to elaborate further. My whanaunga's from up in the north here, sir. So other than that, Bill, sir, I just want to make one last point, if I may. If I've got time. You may. But there is no real, I understand there's no provision in the trust deed for gender composition or gender roles balance. Is there? I understand there isn't, and perhaps that might be something that could be considered, because we are looking at a whole lot of modernisation of these of these boards, perhaps a consideration to gender balance and representation on the board could be something to be considered also. Kia ora tātou.
Kia ora.